Hey guys, and welcome to episode 3 of the Pagnotta Take on Sports. Last week we went over some of the news stories in sports, as well as the previous week we went over the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs, and I've been mentioning a couple of topics, and I hope you guys have liked it so far, and hope I can continue doing this every Wednesday. And tonight we're going to start with the NBA playoffs. It's been an interesting start to the NBA playoffs. It started out, the first round was a little bit slow, a lot of blowouts, and the second round was pretty good, but the third round, once again, as we got to the conference finals, we really didn't expect that it would be this much of a blowout. The Hawks and the Cavaliers, many thought would be a close series, and same with the Warriors and Rockets, but both of them have finished. So we do have our NBA Finals set, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I want to start with the Cavs and the Hawks. It was an absolute destruction by the Cavs. The Hawks looked like a team that shouldn't have even made it out of the first round in this series. Many thought they would maybe stand a chance to take down the Cavs. Which I didn't know if that would really be a smart selection, considering that they didn't really have anyone that could stop LeBron James. But, I had the Cavs winning that series and going on to play in the finals, but I didn't think it would be this bad. I thought the series would at least go 6, maybe 7, and it didn't even come close. The Hawks never really played a strong game. The strongest game they did play was actually in Cleveland in Game 3, and they should have won that game. And you pretty much knew after that game that it was over. Once they blew that game, I mean, not only the fact that it was a 3-0 lead, but the fact that they were winning that game, and they had that thing in the bag, and they just let the Cavs come back on them. Just an absolute disgrace. The Hawks are just a team that, when they get in the playoffs, they can get decently far, or at least they used to be, they couldn't even be past the first round, but now they've gotten to the conference finals, and I think they took a step forward actually in getting to the conference finals. But the fact that they lost in 4 makes you wonder, maybe if Washington had got there, would it have been a better series, or maybe even if the Nets had gotten there, for crying out loud, would it have been a better series, because the Hawks were just awful. I mean, I'm pretty sure I could have fielded my own team and did better than they did, because that was one of the worst performances I've ever seen in my entire life. Especially in Game 4. I understand you're down 3-0 and it's in Cleveland. It's not the ideal situation, but I would have liked to seen a better effort. It was just poor. It's just as if they felt, hey, we're just going to give up and move on, and that's an absolute disgrace. And the fans deserve so much better. Especially Hawks fans, they're great fans, and they put a lot behind that team this year. Many thought they had a shot to maybe get to the NBA Finals, but I think after Korver got taken out by Dellavedova, that was the end of the series for them. They lost their best shooter. I know Jeff Teague is a great player, but he can't do it all on his own. Al Horford's a good player, but has that just silly flagrant foul that he took in that game against Dellavedova, which I didn't think warranted an ejection, but I still thought was just not a smart play, just a boneheaded play by him, because you got to realize you're important to your team. I know Dellavedova is a good player, but you're more important to your team than Dellavedova is, and taking a run at a guy like that for something as dumb as he did, you're always the guy that's going to get punished for it. So the Cavs they're on to play in the finals. And I think most of us thought, coming into the playoffs, and most people thought coming into the season that they would be there, because everyone, predicted that LeBron would get back there. I mean, he's been to 5 straight finals. The man is great, and I'll get into a little bit of discussion. I do want to talk just a little bit about the comparisons between him and Michael. I'll talk about that a little bit later. The Warriors, They beat the Rockets in 5. It wasn't as bad of a series as the Hawks and the Cavs, but I'm not going to say it was a good series. Watching it, none of the, it wasn't really like you got a sense that the Rockets were ever really in it. I mean, the first game they played the Warriors close. The Warriors played well in Game 2 and beat them, but I thought they hung around. But in Game 3, it was just a disaster in Houston. They got blown out. That was an unbelievable performance by Steph Curry, But, just a horrible performance by Houston. It was similar to how the Hawks played in Game 4. They just didn't seem to care coming out there. They were down 2-0, and they actually had a chance. I think if they would have won that game, they probably could have had that series at 2-2, because then, them down 3-0, they actually showed an effort and won Game 4, and I thought, the Warriors came out and won tonight, and they needed to, because if the Warriors were to lose tonight, I think there was a good possibility that the Rockets could have ended up playing for the finals. But I'm glad the Warriors came out and won it. I know I was listening to a lot of radio today, and they were pretty much just saying that the Warriors were in, and I was saying, well, you can't really book their ticket yet. But they came out and they played well tonight. They never really allowed the Rockets to stay extremely close. The margin was safe enough most of the night, and they're on to the finals, and that series was pretty much just yet another Steph Curry domination series as usual. And of course we had another issue similar to the one that we saw with Al Horford and Dellavedova with Dwight Howard and Andrew Bogut, throwing some elbows at each other and everything like that, and some scrappy play, and people wondering, whether Howard should have been fined or suspended, or whether Bogut should have been fined or suspended, which I never really got. I thought Howard definitely deserved a suspension because he took the run at Bogut. I know Bogut's sitting there pushing and shoving him, but that's not a flagrant foul. People say, well, Bogut does that kind of thing. I mean, that's what Bogut's there for. Bogut is an aggressor. And Dwight Howard, there's a difference between being an aggressor and, pushing and shoving people and, blatantly throwing your arm at someone, trying to intentionally take them out and hurt them. And, I just don't see how they say that Al Horford gets a one-game suspension. Meanwhile, Dwight Howard just moves on with no suspension. To me, it just doesn't make any sense. And, I don't know if what the league's trying to do there. I don't know if they were trying to keep that series interesting or what was going on. But, it just makes you question a little bit maybe, what's going on, in the discipline area for the NBA, because I believe he should have been suspended, no doubt. So the finals will be the Cavs and the Warriors. Now, many people are not giving the Cavs a chance, which I think is absolutely the dumbest thing you could possibly do. And if you're a Cavs fan, you got to be feeling good. This is what you want. You want people to come out and say your team is going to be terrible. There's no chance you guys are going to win against the Warriors because the Warriors are just too talented. I don't think you can say that. I know LeBron James doesn't really have the surrounding cast around him that he had in Miami, but he's still got a good group around him. Kyrie Irving's no pushover. Tristan Thompson's played very well. Matthew Dellavedova's stepped up, in Irving's spot, which I know Irving will be back, but Irving's not going to be 100% by any means. That's an injury that needs an off-season to really get fully healed, but he's going to be out there playing as well, trying his best to fight through the injury. J.R. Smith is just playing great, his best basketball since when he came to the Knicks, early on when he came to the Knicks. And same thing with Shumpert. Iman Shumpert's playing really well, which is good for them. But the Warriors, they're deep, and I think they're deeper actually than the Cavs are. I mean, their starting lineup is very strong. You got Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Andrew Bogut, Harrison Barnes, Festus Ezeli can come off the bench. They've got a whole bunch of a whole group of guys that are strong. And people have made the point, well, they're about 9 deep. Got Livingston that can come off the bench. He's still playing some good basketball at this point. And I believe that's true. I know the Cavs aren't as deep as they are, but the experience for the Cavs in the playoffs, I know there's not a whole lot on there. But really, I think it's LeBron. The LeBron factor is something that's huge, and LeBron just controls the game in his own way. He will take you to the rack. His jump shot, I know there was a stat out there that he's shooting just 16% from three in the playoffs, which I thought was probably one of the most incredible stats I've ever heard. I mean, he's shooting 16% from three in the playoffs, and his team just swept another team. So, clearly he's doing something right. I mean, he didn't score in the first quarter of their game, what was it, Game 4 victory or Game 3? I can't remember. I don't know how I can't remember this. Where he scored 37, which is unbelievable. He had a triple-double in that game. He got from scoring no points in the first quarter to having 37 and dropping a triple-double. I mean, that's just unbelievable. And the question is, who is going to guard LeBron James? I mean, you take your pick. Draymond Green's a decent defender, but Draymond Green's not going to be able to go out there and show up LeBron James. That's just not how it works. He's not going to go out there and shut down LeBron. And, people will say, well, Kawhi Leonard was able to shut him down. He did not shut down LeBron. He never shut down LeBron. They won last year, but he was able to contain LeBron to an extent, which containing LeBron to an extent is allowing him to score 20 points on you, which is amazing. But, my thing is, if they can do what Kawhi did, if Draymond Green can do what Kawhi did to him and just affect him enough, I think it will benefit them a lot, and I think the Warriors could be able to win it. I do think the Warriors will win it. I think the depth will help them out. And, LeBron James, you saw in this last one, I know this rest period is definitely going to help him, but we saw in Game 3 against the Hawks, he looked absolutely just finished. He looked like he had nothing left in the tank after that game. I don't know how he was able to bring himself back up for Game 4, but it was crazy. He almost collapsed on the floor, which is just unbelievable to think. And people, I don't think you can read too much into it and say, oh, well, he's closing in on the end of his career because he can't play through that. This has been a tough year for him. All the stuff that he has to go through and, the expectation that he has to win a title this year, which I think is just absolutely nuts. I think that takes a toll on a guy like him. And we could see it in Game 3 when he collapsed to the floor. And, I think going into the finals, it's not going to be a quick series. I think if it's going to be a quick series, it's going to be the Warriors winning in, I could see 5 would be the shortest amount, because I do think that, the Warriors have such a home court advantage. I think they could easily go in and win the first 2 at home, and all they would have to do is, if they could get Game 5 back in their building, that's 3 wins right there. All you got to do is win 1 in Cleveland, and we saw the Hawks were almost able to do that. So, I believe the Warriors could go in there. I have the Warriors actually winning in 6. I think they win in Cleveland, and they do take the series in 6, because I don't see it going 7. And, of course, the MVP of the playoffs would easily be Steph Curry, who I think will just – he'll have a good series, because you can't really put Kyrie on him. You can, but Kyrie's not going to be able to defend him, and Dellavedova's not – he's not experienced enough to be able to defend Steph Curry. Good luck trying to defend a guy that – he throws up these shots that are unbelievable. But I think, the experience factor plays into it a little bit. And I want to talk a little bit about LeBron. I know people are saying, they're trying to compare him and Michael Jordan and all this stuff. He might be better than MJ if he wins this title. The only thing I'm going to tell people when they ask me is, look, MJ has 6 rings. LeBron has 3. If he wins this one, he may not win this one. And if he doesn't, that's unbelievable to think that LeBron James could lose. In most people's minds, it's unbelievable to think. But, if he loses this one, he's not like MJ. MJ went to 6 finals. MJ won 6 finals. That's how it worked. He went in there, he won. And, I think, people say, well, LeBron is more athletic. LeBron is better than Michael Jordan. And people say, well, if they were to play a one-on-one game, he would beat him. Clearly now, MJ is old. We can look. If anyone's a Hornets fan or just a general basketball fan that follows Michael Jordan after his career, if you're a Bulls fan that follows him after his career, he looks old. When you look at him, he does not look like the young Michael that we're used to seeing. And, I just don't think that LeBron is better than him yet. I don't even think LeBron's better than Kobe yet, because I think Kobe is an unbelievable player, and I absolutely hate people that say, well, Kobe, he had all the help from Shaq. Look, Shaq is not the reason he won those titles. Shaq, if anything, Shaq was a helper, but Shaq hindered him a little bit from winning those titles, or kept him from, them from running away with those titles, because Shaq couldn't make free throws. Shaq is... He's basically what DeAndre Jordan is today. He can make, he's got to be right up against the rim to be able to knock down shots. And people could say all they want. I know everyone, people don't like Kobe because people don't like Kobe's style. It's very similar. The person who I would compare it to most is probably Floyd Mayweather. He really doesn't care. He's focused on himself. And My only argument with Kobe is he's still playing in the league. He's got a ton of points. I mean, the man left this past season leading the league in the NBA in points per game with his knee injury. He was leading the league in the NBA before he got his knee injured, and he was only shooting 37% from the field. That is unbelievable to think that he is still leading the league. He's that great of a scorer. He's won 5 titles, which, when I last checked, 5 titles is more than 2. So he is ahead of LeBron on my list. You know, and I would even say people leave out other guys that have won a lot of titles, but I think those 3 are the tops in the sport. And I do think that right now, if I had to rank them, I would say MJ's 1, I'd say Kobe 2, and I would say LeBron is number 3. Overall in the NBA rankings. But, ultimately, the finals should be great. I'm ready for it, and I'm pretty sure everyone else is, but we got to wait until June 4th even before these things kick off. So it's going to be a little bit of a wait. And from there, we move on to the NHL playoffs. We've got 2 Game 7s coming up in the NHL playoffs tonight. I'll start with the the Blackhawks and Ducks. That series is unbelievable. We've got a Game 7. We've had, I believe, 3 of the games already have gone to overtime. The first overtime game of the series was 3 overtimes. The second one almost lasted 2 overtimes. And, you had the overtime game in Anaheim in Game 5 where they scored 45 seconds in. This series has been crazy. I mean, it doesn't matter how big of a lead you get in these ones. I know there was one stretch where Chicago, I believe, they scored 2 goals in about 35 seconds. There was one stretch where I believe Anaheim scored 3 goals in 47 seconds to send it to overtime. It's just unbelievable. And these teams are going back and forth. It's just crazy. And, I think this Game 7 is going to be great. I know it's in Anaheim. The Blackhawks, they're used to it. They've been to the Cup final, in the recent future. It's been a little bit of time since Anaheim's been there, but it hasn't been too long. But I believe in Anaheim, it's a tough game. I believe both teams will score at least 3 times. I say the winner, somebody's going to win it 4-3, and I believe the Ducks will win it. It is in their place. I don't see the Ducks really letting them walk in there and just walk all over them like people believe, saying, oh, well, they've been here, the Blackhawks have been here before. I don't think it matters. I know the Ducks are, they're not as experienced as the Blackhawks, clearly, but the Ducks have a great offense. And Anderson, I think, he'll be able to stand on his head at key moments. I think Crawford will be able to stand on his head at key moments. But you just wonder, which one of the stars is able to step up. Can Corey Perry step up on the side for Anaheim? I think he will. I think he's going to be, I think he's played a good series. He hasn't scored a whole bunch of goals, but I think he's been able to affect the game in his way. You got Patrick Kane on the other side for Chicago, who's just an outright great player. I mean, the dude, I think he might be the best player in the NHL right now. He is just on fire, and people are saying, it's unbelievable how he's fought back from this injury and just keeps going. He had that shoulder injury, and he may go from having that shoulder injury and people thought he was out for the season to bringing them a Stanley Cup. But they're 1 game away, and as I said, I do have Anaheim moving on. I think they will win it, but it's going to be a close game. And on the other side, we've got a Game 7 on Friday night. I am representing my Rangers right here. We got a Game 7 against Tampa. It didn't look for a while like we were going to. We had the series tied at 2, and we just played an awful game in Game 5. We came out, and we were flat. We didn't shoot the puck at all. And, they beat us. They beat us 2-0, but it was pretty handily when you watch the game. I mean, they really just outplayed us, and the Rangers just looked awful. But, we went down into their place in Game 6, and the chance for Tampa to close it out, and, they were saying, well, we're going to be able to close it out, and we played a great game. We scored 7 goals. Derek Brassard had a hat trick, and the last time we really saw something like that was the conference finals when Marc Messier scored a hat trick in Game 6, and we won it in overtime with Stéphane Matteau back in 1994. And any Ranger fan knows that, I know those comparisons are crazy. You can't always listen to those, but if that's any comparison, it would be just unbelievable if we can win Game 7 and move on and play in another Cup final, because this time I don't think we're going to get beat. This is different. This is personal this time after last year. So, and it is in the Garden. I believe the Lightning will come out ready to go. I know people have said, well, they beat us, and they beat the Rangers in Game 5, so they're going to be able to do it again. It's a different feel, though. It's Game 7, and, in the Garden, the Rangers don't lose in Game 7. Henrik Lundqvist seems to just play sensational in Game 7s, and, I really like the way the rest of the team has stepped up. Brassard's has had a great playoffs. That's nothing new. JT Miller played unbelievable the other night. They moved him up to the Rick Nash and Derek Brassard line, and that line, they scored 13 combined points, which if you're not a hockey fan and you are watching this, 13 points is a lot. I mean, that is unbelievable for one line on a hockey team. And they were, if that line can play anything like they did in that game, we're going to win. And we got these lines that have worked together, and they're saying the possibility of Matt Zuccarello coming back and playing for us. It's just crazy, all these things that could happen, and I think we're going to go in there in Game 7 and we're going to be prepared. It's in our building, and the King is going to be ready to go. I know people have said, well, it's been a long series for him. He's had some tough times, but this is just different. Game 7 is a different game, and I think Bishop will play well on the other side for Tampa. I have a feeling it's going to be a 2-1, maybe even a 1-0 type game. It's going to come down to just an absolute scrap goal. It's going to be, it might be someone that no one's ever heard of or that hasn't scored all playoffs. It could be Tanner Glass, who hasn't scored all playoffs, that gets like a tap in or something crazy. And that's, I don't care. My thing is, I don't care how we win. I just hope the Rangers win, and of course I have us winning. I think we will win, and we'll move on to play in the Cup final against Anaheim. And but either way, I think it should be a good game, and I think the other one will be a good game, and it just shows the NHL playoffs are just so great. We got 2 Game 7s, and they always produce. So, we're closing in on that, and, I can't wait. I hope the Rangers are there. Moving on from that, biggest story really outside of the playoffs has been the Ray McDonald story. We first learned about him last year. We heard a lot about him last year during the domestic violence issue. He had a domestic violence issue where apparently he tried to attack his girlfriend, but the charges were dropped by her, as they are with so many of these NFL players these days. And now it's come back up again. During this week, he was apparently in his house, and he started beating up his girlfriend and tried to take their baby, and ran away to one of his former teammates' houses and hid out there until the police actually found him. And this is scary. I mean, he's starting to, this is increased. That's the thing. She dropped the charges the first time, and she shouldn't have, because this is what is happening now. You're basically telling people like this you have a second chance, and it's unbelievable to think, but the next step, if they keep letting him go, is he may just off the girl, and you would really hope that wouldn't happen. Especially for some, we've seen this before. Something, it could be something like a Javon Belcher, but for someone like this, there are signs. There were no signs for Belcher. I'm not saying there was any signs. There's that someone did something wrong, that they didn't catch anything. But, it seems similar to that. And then, of course, today he actually got in trouble. He was, he violated a restraining order. He went back to the house, which I just don't understand. The man just doesn't get it. And it's unbelievable. It's a bad face for the NFL. I mean, the guy's a thug. He's a thug. He's a loser. That's what he is. He really is. He's a loser, and I really don't care what anyone says. He is probably one of the worst people in the NFL, and I don't think he should be allowed back in the NFL. Roger Goodell needs to make an example. This is the area where Roger Goodell needs to step up. They are going to pursue it this time. These charges won't be dropped, and Roger Goodell needs to levy the penalty and say, look, you were in trouble for this last year, you're in trouble for this year. I would tell him, look, your career is done. You will not play in the NFL anymore. He needs to put his foot down, and they need to put this man in jail, because he is going to harm either his girlfriend, or he may even harm the baby. And, I know I don't want that, and I don't think anyone wants that. So they need to make an example out of him. Put him in jail. Get that thug off the field. He does not deserve to be out there. It's unbelievable that people like that can play football. Just a disgrace. And, for him, his career's over. He doesn't deserve to play anywhere. You want to beat women? Well, then sit at home and beat women. Because, you shouldn't beat women anyways. That's not what I'm saying. That came out wrong. But I'm saying you should not be allowed to play sports. You shouldn't be allowed to do anything. You should be sitting in a jail cell. And if you want to try to beat up someone, why don't you beat up someone of your own gender? Because you probably get your ass kicked. So, it's unbelievable. And, for the NFL, it hurts because now you look at something like this, and people, there won't be any second chances. They're going to see this and they're going to turn this into an example. They're going to turn this into you cannot, you don't get second chances. If you commit domestic violence, you will be done the first time. And I know that's a good thing. For some of the cases, it's a good thing. Someone like Greg Hardy, something like that where he beats, his girlfriend and then threatens to shoot her. You shouldn't be in the league. If that is found if you're found guilty, you should not be allowed to play in the league for something like that. But it does hurt in some of these, cases of. I haven't really seen any domestic violence issues, but one that I will use is the Duke lacrosse players who were accused of raping a woman, and they got actually found guilty, and they ended up losing everything, their careers, pretty much everything. They couldn't get any jobs anywhere, and a couple of years later the girl comes out and says, yeah, I lied about it. And people will do that to try to get money from these players, and it's going to come down to, in the NFL, if you get accused of domestic violence, you will be done. And it's the same thing in other sports. That's what's going to happen. Any of these other sports, the NFL, the NHL, we saw it, or the NBA, we saw it with Jeffrey Taylor of the Charlotte Hornets. He ended up committing a domestic violence charge. Haven't heard anything from him anymore. His career's pretty much done. I didn't find out, I never found out if he was guilty or anything like that. The man could have been let go free, but this issue is what ends up costing all sports. And someone that does all these things, and anything, I know when I first heard of child endangerment from the Ray McDonald case, I immediately thought of Adrian Peterson and his case. It didn't end up being that. He just ended up taking the child with him. I don't think he was going to end up actually doing anything to the child. I think he just wanted the kid to be with him and not be with the mother. I don't know if they were having issues or what was going on with that, but still, anything, especially anything that involves women or children, will be immediately, there will be immediate punishment, and for some of those guys it hurts. And then the question is, to look at it at a football standpoint, which is the least important, but still something that you need to talk about. The Bears went out and spent money on this guy, and they really thought he could be a piece that they needed. And the question is now, where do they go? They don't have all these pieces that they lost. They lost a couple of guys, and like Stephen Pia, who ended up leaving and going to the Redskins. And I believe they were bringing McDonald in as his replacement. They were under the belief that Ray McDonald was going to be his replacement. So now, I don't know. My thinking is they probably have some undrafted rookies at the position. I don't remember if they drafted anyone at defensive tackle. I'm gonna have to look that up. But the question is, where do they go? It's almost too late to try to sign free agents. But you never know. They could try to go out there and see if they can't find someone that wants to come in for a short period of time and give them a chance. But it's a good thing that they released him, and he deserved to be released. But for the Bears, it's just horrible that they ended up taking a risk on this guy who had been given a second chance, and he ends up ruining it for himself, and it ends up hurting the Bears in a big way. That could have been a key piece to their defense, because Ray McDonald was a good football player, and now John Fox's defense takes a hit, and I think he'll ultimately be able to find someone that can fill that role. But it's not a blow that you just move on from easily. And from there, we do have other trouble around the world. The FIFA, I don't know, I'm pretty sure people have seen this. This is blowing up all over Twitter, all over sports radio, all over ESPN and all that. 7 FIFA officials were arrested last night in Zurich, Switzerland. And they were brought back here to the United States, which I really didn't get, but apparently it has to do with something against bribes being received in U.S. money or something like that, and our criminal justice group ended up pursuing that or something like that. I don't know. But basically what happened, and it's not really shocking. I'm pretty sure we all knew something was happening. They have been taking bribes from these cities to try to get the World Cup there. They took bribes apparently from Brazil. They took bribes from the most notable is Qatar, where the 2022 World Cup will supposedly be played. For now. Now there are questions of whether or not this investigation could end up removing FIFA as an organization completely from the World Cup, and they would have to bring in a whole new group of leaders and everything like that. I don't think that's going to end up happening because there is an election coming up. I believe it might actually be tomorrow. I'm not 100% sure. I know it's sometime within this next week where they will try to elect a new president of the group, and I'm almost 100% certain that the guy that is in there now will not be in there. Now, they are not pursuing charges against him because they are saying that he was in the dark about these bribes, which I think is absolutely the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I really don't get that at all, how they would say that, you know, these bribes should... He didn't know anything about these bribes. That makes no sense. The dude is a president of the company. I mean, I know basic facts about something. The president is the guy that knows most about these. Now, you know, he may be in the dark, but to me it just seems mysterious. But ultimately, he probably will not be elected. So FIFA will stay in charge. But the question is, with a new group in there, will they end up moving the World Cup from Qatar? Now, there are some factors to it that would keep it there. Of course, it has been selected. Qatar has to have started already probably putting money into it, you would believe. But there are a lot of things that are turning people away. Chances are there will be teams that will boycott playing over there because Qatar is in the middle of it's in the Middle East. There is danger, of course, of you would believe terrorism. That is, you know, a little bit of a bias from American standpoint, and I'm not going to say that's the reason why I wouldn't go over there. That's definitely not one of the reasons that I would go over there because they don't have as much terrorism as, you know, some of these other countries. But the main thing that many people are worried about, and it's a legitimate concern, is the heat. That's over there. It gets into the hundreds almost every day over there. And if they play it during the summer, it is easily going to be up around, in the hundreds, probably around 115 to 120 degrees outside when they're playing these soccer games. So I know, you know, and it's a 90-minute long game. You know, you get 45-minute halves with extended time, you know, the added time onto it, and that's a lot of running. Soccer takes a lot out of you. I mean, even on, you know, a 50-degree day, it is hard to play soccer. I mean, you are sweating coming off, and you know, the concern has to be, you know, in temperatures of 115, 120 degrees, you're going to worry about players dying on the field from overexhaustion. You know, I mean, the only thing that I could think is if they would keep it there, they would have to allow you to do more substitution than just 3, which is just crazy because, you know, you don't want to change soccer. But, I mean, that's unbelievable. You cannot have players out there playing, you know, full time. I mean, most of the teams, when you see the World Cup, if you watch the World Cup, most of the teams, the subs are pretty much the same. The guys come in for the same guys in almost every game. There's a little bit of change, but most of the same players play the entire time. Lionel Messi plays the entire time. You know, guys like Cristiano Ronaldo, you're not going to take guys like that out of a game because they're just too good. But in that case, you know, you would see guys like Messi probably sitting on and coming in with about, you know, about the 70-minute mark to play because it would be that hot outside, and you would want to save them for the end of the game. You know, but ultimately, I think it'll end up probably staying there because it's going to be real hard to try to move it somewhere else. Now, there have been some rumors spreading around since this news broke yesterday, so this isn't really anything that would probably be, you know, something that you would take into, you know, extreme account and say, well, you know, there's a great chance. But some have said that the World Cup could be moved to the United States. I would not look into it too much just because of the fact that that's a lot that would have to get done. I know we would be probably one of the more prepared countries for it. You know, any of us, maybe some of the South American countries, I know worst comes to worst, you could try to move it back to Brazil or maybe some of these other countries, maybe England that has a lot of playing surfaces that you could play on. But most likely it'll end up staying in Qatar. And as for these officials that are in trouble for this corruption, chances are they'll be found guilty, and they will end up being either, most likely they're going to be jailed, or they will have to pay unbelievably hefty fines. And this also does affect other sports, because I know I was listening to some of my other sports radio shows today, the Scott Van Pelt show. There was a caller that called in and said, he asked Scott and Adnan Burke, he said, well, this means that, they could go into an investigation about how the NFL takes bribes from for the Super Bowl. But there's a difference. It's not really that they take bribes. And they may take money. I don't think the NFL does. It's more of the fact that the NFL picks the best location. You look at where the Super Bowl has been in recent times. Just look at the last couple of seasons where it's been at. All of the stadiums are upgraded. These are not stadiums that are, it's not like we're playing in ODOC, Coliseum or whatever that place is called now. That place is such a dump, you don't even know the name of it. In Oakland, I mean, we're playing in places that are high tech. MetLife Stadium is state of the art. That place was just built, it's got to be about 5 or 6 years old now, but it hasn't been around that long. Then you have, you got Indianapolis, that's of course state of the art. You've got, even Ford Field, I know that hasn't been extremely recently, but that's a state of the art facility. You have where they played Super Bowl this year in Glendale, that's a state of the art facility. The Super Bowl coming up, Super Bowl 50, that'll be played in Santa Clara. That was a brand new stadium last year. So they've got all the upgrades. That place is filled with upgrades. I believe Dallas is somewhere along the lines coming soon. That's the most state-of-the-art stadium that pretty much anywhere in the world. That place is unbelievable. It's got basically anything you could ask for technology-wise. So that's the reason why they choose to go there. It's not the reason that this caller said of, well, they're taking bribes. They may be taking bribes. We don't know. I don't think they are, like I said. I don't think they're taking bribes for these Super Bowls. I think they are picking what they believe to be the best locations for them, the high-tech stadiums, the places where people will want to go to watch a Super Bowl. And from there, we'll move on. And my final topic of the night, I want to touch a little bit on baseball. I haven't touched a whole lot on it. And the reason I want to talk about this, we had the Kershaw and Bumgarner, the third matchup this past week, the third time they've met already this year. I believe they had said they had met about 3 times within the last, 4 or 5 seasons. And these are two aces going head-to-head. Clayton Kershaw is a great pitcher. We all know that. Clayton Kershaw is one of the best in the league. And so is Madison Bumgarner. Now, Madison Bumgarner, he's not really known for being great in the regular season. He's not that guy that comes out and wins Cy Youngs all the time in the regular season. He is the best postseason pitcher in a long time. It's close, the debate between him and Mariano Rivera, because he really is that good, and he is a starting pitcher, so that's saying a lot. His postseason ERA is unbelievable. I couldn't even do it on a video game. It's just nuts how great this guy actually is. But, it brought to me the question of who is the actual best pitcher in the league. There's so many debates that you could do. You go Kershaw, he's great in the regular season. He's got the best, he's got a great array of pitches. He's just dominant. When he's out there on the mound, you can almost always know that the Dodgers are going to be playing a good game. There's a great chance they could win, and it's much-watched baseball if he's on TV against someone else that is really good. And then there's, you go to Bumgarner, who's really good, especially in the postseason, as I said. I think you could even go to Kershaw's teammate, Zach Greinke. He's having a great start to the year, and he's always been a great pitcher. He's always, been one of those guys that, has pitched well. I know he had one bad year. I believe that was with Milwaukee, but Milwaukee, that's not saying much. I mean, there's nothing that goes well in Milwaukee. I mean, that city's just a disaster for sports. And then you've got Michael Walkout in the NL who's pitching great. He's pitched well for a couple of years. You could even go with the Mets ace Matt Harvey, who's a great a great pitcher. He's got so many different pitches that he can use. He throws so many of them well. You know, you got guys like Justin Verlander, who's really good. I don't think he's up there at the top anymore. I think he's just in the second tier, but he's right there. Max Scherzer is a great pitcher. You know, he's up there. And it got me to thinking, and I thought long and hard about who was the actual best pitcher. And when I came down to it, considering everything, I would actually have to say it is Bumgarner. I know in the regular season there are times that he struggles, but he's beaten Kershaw already twice this year. You know, he seems like he's starting to bring that postseason fire into the regular season. It hasn't been there you know, most of these other years. You're not really sitting there saying, well, he was the best pitcher. For a while, he wasn't the best pitcher on that staff. You had guys like Matt Cain and Tim Lincecum who were better than him. Now he is the dominant pitcher on that staff, and he's showing it by beating guys like Kershaw, you know, in head-to-head matchups. And like I said, when he gets into the playoffs, the man is unstoppable. The man, I mean, I knew last year, I remember watching the World Series last year, and he came in Game 7 against the Royals, and they were trailing, and I said, here we go. It's over. I said to myself, the game is over. The Royals stand no chance. He's the best pitcher that we've seen in the postseason. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he is the best pitcher to ever pitch in postseason history, because he is a starting pitcher that has an ERA. I believe it's something like .27. It is something just uncanny, just crazy. And you know, you can debate, and I'd love for you guys to hit me up on Twitter at Future Tar Heel. Hit me up on Instagram at Anthony_Pagnotta96, and comment on this video and tell me who you think the best pitcher is in Major League Baseball. Tell me why. I want to hear your opinions. I've got my opinion. And I believe Bumgarner is right, and I will argue with you till the end that Bumgarner is the best pitcher in the league. But I want to hear what you guys have to say about it too, and you know, I want to hear what you have to say about the show. If you want to send anything like that, and please, if you see the tweets online on Twitter, please retweet it. If you see it on Instagram, you know, if you could tell your friends about it or anything like that, just word of mouth. And before I go, I do want to congratulate Carl Edwards on winning the Coke 600, and more importantly, I want to congratulate Juan Pablo Montoya on winning the Indy 500, and I also want to congratulate all the Indy 500 drivers for no flipovers and no deaths. So you guys had a pretty successful race, but on a serious note, you know, the Indianapolis 500 was actually a really good race, and I really enjoyed it. So thank you for watching, guys, and I hope you'll watch it again next week. And as I said, just tell your friends.